Good morning, it's today again. Welcome back to Joseph's Reserves. I'm Joseph, and I store 20% of my income in the form of rare coins and precious metals. Alright, let's take a look at what just happened in the metals market this week, because there are some pretty big signals forming right now that most people are completely overlooking. Congratulations to Maestro Metals for being the first comment on my video yesterday. Thank you for the support. If you haven't seen my video on fractional silver that I made yesterday, definitely go check it out and find Maestro Metals in the comment section to start a conversation. Since the beginning of the year, every Saturday, I've been taking a look at the weekly closes of gold, silver, platinum, palladium, and copper. So let's take a look. Gold closed this week at $4,678, silver at $73.15, platinum at $1,990, and palladium at $1,530. Copper even closed up at $5.51.03. Now, those are just the prices, but what really matters is how we got there, what changed this week, and how it fits into the bigger picture of what we're seeing over the last few months. So let's start with gold. Gold moved about 4% this week, climbing from roughly 4,495 back up to 4,687, and that's a very strong recovery. Consider just 2 weeks ago we had another sharp drop. Gold fell hard into the $4,400 range, but it didn't stay there long. Buyers stepped in quickly, and now we're seeing a push right back up. That tells us that gold is still acting exactly how it should. It's stable, it's being accumulated on dips, and it's holding its role as the anchor of this entire metals market. So now silver closed at $73.15, up about 4.7% from last week's $69.87. So now it's moving right alongside gold. But silver's story is a little different. If you zoom out, silver has been all over the place. We saw it run all the way up to $100 this year and crash all the way back down to the 60s. So now it's climbing again. That volatility is also a bit of an opportunity, because when silver starts recovering after a move like that, it usually means momentum is starting to shift back into its favor. And that brings us to the gold to silver ratio. Right now, based on those closes, we're sitting at a ratio of 64 to 1. Now compare that to where we were just a couple weeks ago. It was closer to 66, even higher during the drop. So what's happening? Silver is starting to outperform gold slightly. And that's important because when the ratio starts to come down, it usually signals increased confidence in silver, not just as money, but as an industrial metal too. If that trend continues, then that's where silver can really start to move. Now let's talk about platinum. Platinum closed at $1,990. It's up 6.2% from last week when it closed at $1,873, and that is one of the strongest moves this week. But again, if we zoom out, platinum was over $2,700 earlier this year. Then it dropped hard into that $1,800 range, and now it's starting to recover. So in this move, what are we seeing right now? This could be the beginning of a reversal, or at least a stabilization after a big drop. And historically, platinum doesn't stay undervalued forever. If we look at the ratios, the gold to platinum ratio is right around 2.35. That means it takes over 2 ounces of platinum to equal 1 ounce of gold. Historically, that number was much closer to 1 and sometimes even below 1. So platinum is extremely undervalued when compared to gold. If we look at the platinum to silver ratio, now we're sitting around 27 to 1, and that tells us that platinum still is relatively strong compared to silver, but it's also lagging behind where it used to be when both metals were running. So between the two ratios, platinum still looks cheap, especially if you believe it will eventually move back towards historical norms. And then there's palladium. Palladium closed at $1,530, and that's up 9% from last week's $1,403. That's actually the biggest percentage move out of all the metals this week. But just like platinum, palladium has been in a downward trend for the past few months. It's been steadily declining from $2,000 down to those 1400s before this bounce. So this is the move we're now seeing. It could be a short-term bounce, or it could be the beginning of a shift in momentum. And this is where it gets interesting for palladium. The platinum to palladium ratio is sitting at 1.3. That means that platinum is slightly more expensive than palladium, but not by much. Historically, these two tend to trade close together and sometimes even flip. So when you see them this close after both dropping, it suggests that the market is trying to figure out which should lead. And it's usually where opportunity starts to form. And then, of course, we have copper. Copper closed at $5.51, basically flat this week, only up about 0.5%. But copper isn't about volatility, it's about stability. Over the last few months, copper has held relatively steady compared to everything else. And that matters because copper is tied directly to the real economy, construction, manufacturing, and infrastructure. So when copper holds like this, it tells us the underlying industrial demand isn't collapsing. That's actually a very strong signal. So when you zoom out and look at everything over the last few months as a whole, here is what really stands out. We had a strong run up across almost all the metals, followed by a sharp correction, especially in silver, platinum, and palladium. And now we're seeing a recovery. Gold is leading that recovery with stability. Silver is following with volatility but upside potential. Platinum and palladium are trying to figure out and find a bottom of these major dips. And copper is quietly confirming the broader economics is still holding strong. This is not a random market. This is a market that corrected. It reset expectations and now it's building its move. So now is the question, where do you position yourself? Do you stay safe with gold? Do you look at the upside in silver? Or do you start paying closer attention to platinum and palladium while they're still historically undervalued? Remember that you should be looking at your metal holdings as a total portfolio. Think of it all in terms of value and what percentage of that value you hold in each metal. Allocate a certain percentage to each metal based on your specific risk tolerance and what type of volatility you're going to be comfortable with. Everyone is comfortable with a different amount, and this is not financial advice. You shouldn't be looking at what I'm saying and directly adjust what you're doing. Know that I am not a financial advisor, and if I was, I'm not your financial advisor. So instead of just doing what I'm saying or what you're seeing, instead take stock of the metals that you have and determine how you feel based on the volatility of your personal stack and adjust from there. I just made my own line of coffee. Joseph's Reserves It's Today Again coffee. Most mornings aren't dramatic. They're quiet. You wake up, pour yourself a cup, and now you have a choice. Drift through the day or take hold of what's in front of you. That's really what this whole thing's about. Showing up, building good habits, staying disciplined in the small things. Whether that's stacking consistently, learning something new, or just being faithful with what you've been given. I put these words on every bag to remind myself first. Every morning is a gift. Not yesterday, not tomorrow, today. So take a breath, take a sip, and let's get to work. It's today again. You can now write me at Joseph's Reserves, 10160 Highway 242, Suite 800, number 401 in Conroe, Texas, zip code 77385. Make sure to include your information so I can write you back. If you like this video, make sure you go down and hit the like button. Go into the comment section to start a conversation or to continue conversations with those you've met in comment sections before. Share the video to anyone you think may like it, and subscribe if you haven't already. But most of all, thank you so much for watching. And just remember, every ounce adds up. So no matter how small, just keep stacking.